Thanks, Coach. And I call him Coach because I'm big on giving us our props when we work for others. I think Todd knew this when I was his assistant at Morgan. I never called him Todd because I knew he had earned his stripes, and I wanted our student athletes and everybody around Morgan State to give him his props. But the only thing I could think of coming here and listening today was this is an organization right here that could run an NBA franchise in this room. That was the one thing I was just thinking of in trying to give some credence to the topic. And I think the topic is a little bit away from just basketball. It's evolving into sports administration. For me, this isn't being a deputy AD now something that was far-fetched for me because I knew the ball was going to stop bouncing as a coach. The question was I going to stick it out and try to keep forcing my way or trying to become a head coach again? And I kind of knew that train was ending before Todd gave me the opportunity to come to Morgan. And I started thinking about what was the next step. Just like Coach Payne, Mook was saying, our area, that iron sharpen iron kind of thing, I think is true. We grew up in the DMV with basketball. We're unique, and I can say this because I've been blessed to coach and work in all four of the Power Fours. And I've been very fortunate with that. My upbringing, I look back, was very fortunate. A little bit of background, grew up in C. Pleasant, Booker T. Holmes, right across from McDonald's on MLK. That was George Palmer Highway. And the way I got into basketball was very simple. My father had cancer when I was 10, and I didn't want to go home every day to watch him decline. So I spent more and more time getting my schoolwork done at Bowie and at Greenbelt Middle School before I even got home, because I was going to the court. And I just said, you know what? There's one thing I'm going to do better than everybody in the DMV, if I can, is I'm going to be shoot the basketball. And so back then, I was getting up my 3,000 shots before I went home at night when the lights went off. That's my story. So it evolved, made me easier to, I think, to transition to other things because I knew then ball, the way I got into it, I could live without it. So once I got into college, I started learning different things. The one thing I want everybody to know in here, if you're a coach, don't be pigeonholed in terms of your abilities. One of the things that I learned as an assistant coach early in my career is how many things you did as a coach. So I never was worried if I got let go that I could evolve into something else. What that would be, I wasn't quite sure, but I was never worried about that because if you think about all the things you do as an assistant, it's endless in terms of the person, the professionalism, the teamwork, administrative, financial, travel. I can go on and on and on and on. And I think sometimes coaches, we don't really get that. So the things that you learn as a coach, they really, really transcend into administration very, very easily. And I'm living proof of that. After Morgan State, I got an opportunity to be the AD at Carroll. Archbishop Carroll. One of my former players called me. It was in February. We were watching film or doing something. One of my former players who went to Anacostia, I recruited to Virginia. He called me and said, Coach, we need you, we need you, we need you. You talking about Mike named Mike Powell? I said, Mike, what are you talking about? I said, we need you at Carroll. We need an administrator. These kids over here, this program, this school is falling apart. We need you. And I said, Mike, what are you talking about? He said, I know you want to go into administration, Coach. And I never thought about high school. I always thought college was going to be my transition. I mean, anybody that knows me, I played at Rutgers, was Craig Littlepage's GA, then went down to Bowling Green with Jim Larinaga, was his assistant his first two years as a head coach. Went to George Mason with Ernie Nestor, who we hired Todd from FedEx. Never made it to the office, but we hired Todd so he could work 5-star in the summer. He knew all the players. And then Tulane and that stuff, you know his background a little bit. That's a hell of a story. But then went to South Carolina with George Felton. That's when I knew I wanted to coach, because I was with a guy who said, if it's your scout, it's your game. And we played Cincinnati. I'll never forget when Huggins was there. I had that scout. They were playing at 1-3-1. And George was like, it's your game. I was like, what do you mean? You get up off the bench during the game, you point out at the timeout, and at the halftime, if you want to throw your jacket, you throw your jacket. That's when I knew I wanted to be a head coach. Then I got an opportunity to go to UVA with Jeff Jones. Got my first head job at Loyola, resigned at Loyola. A lot of people don't know that. That's another story. Philosophically with the administration there, and then when I resigned, I wasn't worried because I knew I could get another job. I had a couple opportunities to go to Charlotte, Michigan, and Arizona State. I actually told my wife, you pick which one. I wanted to go to Charlotte. It's a true story. Because they were playing Northeastern money in the South, and I had 2 kids. My wife chose Ann Arbor because of the schools. So that won. I get there on May 29th. AD resigns on July 1st. I'm in my garage in October. We used to start practice with October 15th? October the 5th or 6th, I'm in my garage, leaving a football game at the big house, trying to beat the traffic, boxes still in there. AD fires fish, and I'm listening to it on the radio. We're gonna hire Brian as the head coach. We had 2 Brians on the staff. One of them is still at San Diego State, Brian Dutcher. And they said, who? He said, Brian Ellerbe. It was like, who the hell is that? And the only reason I got it is because I was the only guy with head coaching experience. But I wasn't afraid of the job. I'd already been a head coach, and luckily I had recruited and coached good players, so I wasn't enamored by who we had. But we did have that local dude named Lou Bullock who could shoot the cover off of it. And we had a big kid named Robert Traylor. I knew we had a chance. 4 years there, got let go, got out of it. Got out of it for 9 years. Talked to Tap a lot. And took what I learned throughout my coaching career, but also I majored in urban planning at Rutgers. I was probably a little different. And I talked to Mook a lot that time too. I got into construction. I was a partner in a construction company in Las Vegas. And if the economy didn't go down in 2009, I would still be there. Didn't quite build my company big enough to handle the recession, but we did go out with 1 trailer behind MGM, and I had a PE and a project engineer and a project manager, and built it to 75. I knew nothing about construction, but my investors said, you know how to build a team, and that was because of basketball. When that recession hit, came back home, And just walking around, I think I might have saw Rick. Rick's gone. I think I might have saw Rick, and Hobbsy saw me. Saw Carl Hobbs, and he was like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm not sure." He said, "Man, I need you. Come over here to GW." Came over to GW, had a good run there with Hobbsy. He hadn't been to the conference tournament in 3 years. And I really wanted to stay there, but then Oliver called me at DePaul, and it was a life lesson for me. Never take a job because of money, as an assistant only. I knew Oliver since I was 12, 13 years old. He recruited all of us. Recruited all of us in the area, right? But I never worked with him, and he never worked with me. But I learned something about me too, because I had been a head coach, and I had won in the NCAA, had won tournament games, had won NITs. They hadn't done that at Clemson. So it was a little oil and water. Didn't work out as bad. And that's when this guy came back into my life. Was at Morgan and then Carroll. Administration, great alternative. I'll tell you this. Everything that you learn as an assistant coach and a head coach, you can apply to be an administrator. And it's been a lot of fun the last year. Today's the 15th, right? I've been at Delaware State. Tomorrow will be 1 year since I left Carroll. And last night we had a football game at 3 and a soccer match at 7. It's been really, really fun. The one thing I will tell you that each and every one of you should do as an assistant coach, whether you're in high school or head coach in high school, at the college level or wherever, get to know your entire organizational org chart. I learned that when Todd hired me at Morgan, I started to get to know everybody on the campus. And then I applied that to Carroll, where I knew everything about the school's inner workings. Because if I was gonna be an administrator, I needed to know every aspect. I always started with like custodial, the people that everybody forgets. They see the kids, they know their mannerisms, they know their parents, they know their cars, they know how they drop stuff off, they know all of those little things. Never take them for granted. Ferg's sitting right there. Ferg told me something when I was a head coach in Michigan. I never forget, Ferg, never forget this. Ferg was part of a team in Detroit. They basically would take the worst schools in the city, right? They had a team of people, and the superintendent said, "I need you to fix that school." It'd be Ferg, a principal, maybe 2 other people, correct? I went to see him at, I think it was the middle school, Cleveland Middle School, the gutter. All right, Ferg told me this. He said, "B, you have no idea what every kid went through yesterday coming in to this school this morning, what happened to them the night before. When they come through the security gate or come through the school, you got to meet the person. You don't know if they ate when they left the school, if there was some illegalities in the home, I'll just say, assaults, what have you. I never forgot that. That served me well to look at situations as they were. So custodial became my first thing. Then the facilities people. If you're going to be an administrator, custodial and facility folks, if they're not in line, you can't put that game on. You can't put that game on. Dwight saw me yesterday. We had a football game, at Del State. We need about 14 administrators. We got 4. Okay? But that game got to be on, and it was on ESPN Plus at 3:02. Okay? You've got to be able to have alliances in every phase of your building. Construction folks, stuff break, man, got to be able to know who to call. Advancement, everybody need money, need to know how to raise money. I can go down the list. I say all this to say this. When I was a head coach at Loyola, I didn't realize it, but I had already been involved with all those things before we had tip-off. And when you hear that the job coaching is 5% of the job you got, it's true. It's true. Because you worry about everything. So when I worked for this guy, I tried to make sure that I took as much stuff off of his plate. If you can be an assistant coach and think ahead, you'll take yourself a lot farther. I heard Anwar say some really good things about being useful. Those are the things that I learned as an assistant. And going into administration, even to this day. Yesterday, I'm picking up trash, moving a generator around, putting up A-frames in front of the ticket office. But then I'm with the president and the governor, all in about an hour. And I test all that to being an assistant basketball coach. So the one thing I will kind of bring, and I hope I'm not jumping around, and you guys who are coaches now, this is what I say, and Coach, you might attest to this, because even though I'm doing those things, I'm the elder statesman at Del State. I do have an athletic director, Tony Tucker, who played with Todd at Rhode Island, and his son was our manager, and he introduced me to the president, and that was the reason I went to Delaware State. But the thing I will say is, when you look at all the things that you do as an assistant, be creative and believe in yourself. Be creative and believe in yourself. Everyone that's a high school coach now, you can be a college coach the next year nowadays. We got a high school coach as our head coach at Delaware State, and we got 3 other ones that are in other sports. And I'm gonna tell you that you're more adaptable to become a better coach now, I think, is because your roster is gonna change every year. High school coaches can deal with that. College coaches, I know I would have a tough time with that now as an old school coach. If you're in high school assistant coach or a high school head coach and you have aspirations of being a head coach in college, it's more attainable now, I think, than ever. For a couple reasons. You have guys like me that are going to be sitting at the table in the room. We hired a guy who never called a timeout. I was the only guy, and it was like, I wasn't enamored by Deshaun Jackson. I was like, oh, he was a great NFL guy. He can run real fast and catch a lot of passes. He never called a timeout. High school, middle school, anything. But brought some other attributes as an organization. So he gets an opportunity. Stan Waterman, our head basketball coach now, coached at Sanford High School in Wilmington. Now, there was folks that knew him, but he became a Division I head coach as a high school coach. And I just think that that trend is going to continue because your roster is going to change immensely. Now, going to the basketball side of that, one of the things that I learned as a black coach early was I needed to learn how to coach all kinds of styles. And if I can impress upon coaches now, please learn how to coach a lot of different styles. And the reason I kind of learned that early is watching great teams back in the day. I'll use this as an example. I used to watch Carolina play a lot because they were on a lot. And I used to say to myself, how hard is it to coach that team? Because every year he was going to be able to get the same big kid, the same wing, the same guard. Am I right, Coach? It was either Kupchak, Lagarde. They were going to have those guys. But as black coaches, we don't get jobs like that. We don't get jobs like that. So he can run T-game for 35 years. And he's going to win 30 games. Probably you would get to the Final Four, you got to have some luck. The one thing I will impress, learn how to coach all styles. Especially now because your roster is going to change. And one guy that really helped me with that was Jim Larinaga. I played for Tom Young at Rutgers. We were predictable, I'm sure. Coach, you coached against us. I know we were predictable. We were going to do the same thing every time. Then I was a grad assistant at Craig Littlepage, the most brilliant athletic administrative mind I've known. I mean, Wharton Business School, graduated from Penn with honors, played for Chuck Daly, Wharton Business School, athletic director, emeritus at Virginia. Ran the NCAA selection committee, on and on and on. Then I got a chance to work with Larinaga. Larinaga taught me this. If you believe something, Brian, you do it, but you learn the drills to everything that you want to do, and you coach those drills. Because you may see a play, a set, or a defense that you want to run, but you got to build up to that and do what you do. When I got the Loyola job, I was at UVA, we were arguably the best defensive team in the country every year. Well, yeah, because we spent 2 hours and 45 minutes of the 3 hours of practice on defense, if you want to know the reason. If we got 62, we were going to win the game because you weren't going to get 55. But when I got to Loyola, I didn't have Bryant Stith. I didn't have Corey Alexander. I didn't have Junior Burrow. I didn't have first-round picks. I looked at a team and I said, gee, what am I going to do? And that's when I was like, damn, thank God for Jim Larinaga, because now I got to create something that's good for that team at Loyola. So I played man, a lot of zone. We never played zone in Virginia. I played a lot of zone my first year at Loyola. But then the second year, I went to look at tapes on Don Meyer. He used to run a 1-3-1 or a 1-2-2. And I knew when people didn't know which one it was in the paper, I knew I had you. Matchup. But I knew I couldn't do all the different slides, so I changed 2 slides. And I stuck with it, and then we recruited to that. And every year we won games, you know, came out to the cookie tournament. Todd, you remember what you did? This is where friends and alliances come in. So they had the Otis Spunkmeyer tournament, the cookie organization. They used to have a great tournament at Cal. And I wanted my team to come out there. You put us with Kansas State first, but we went out to the cookie tournament. But this is where alliances and relationships come in. But it was so helpful. So at the time, I think you paid, our honorarium was $35K. We cut 25, went to the team. I know that was a lot, wasn't it? $35K, but I said, Todd, can I get 10 cut on the side? He was like, damn, B. I talked to people, said, yeah, I'm gonna get you 10 on the side. I said, it ain't for me, it's for my staff. So we go out to the Spunkmeyer tournament and play, and that's when I knew that defense was gonna be good, even though we lost 2 games. But as a high school coach, I would attest to you to really start thinking about how you want to coach and what you think is adaptable to you and what you do best. And don't just copycat. I get a lot of guys still call me. I don't even talk ball much anymore for the last 10 years, 8 years. But when they do, I say, well, what are you committed to? You know, what are you really trying to do? Do you have players that can do it? Do you watch TV and say, I can run that set? No. Do you have personnel that can run that set? Be very intentional. I could go on for a long time, and I hope I've given you something in terms of administrative help. But the one thing I will say in here, we didn't have this a lot when we were head coaches. I can remember driving up 29, Todd called me, he's like, B, man, something going down, man. I might be getting a job, da-da-da-da. We talking about it. I'm on 29. I pull off on the side of the road at the Wendy's in Garrisonville. Ed. I'll never forget it. But we didn't talk like this back in the day. We would go to clinics, and Tubby and Coach Rav, rest his soul, Coach Thompson, rest his soul, they wouldn't give you information. They would give you a little snippet. Tubby wasn't giving you the press, okay? They wasn't gonna help you recruit over them. So cherish this. Mook and I talk about this all the time. You give us 3 days on our phones, we probably can find anybody in the world in any part of the basketball industry to connect and help you if you give us some time. Having this, and hopefully it will evolve, cherish it. Last thing I'll leave you with, and this is a small thing, I did this to one of my grad assistants yesterday. No slight on us at Delaware State. So we didn't have game clock, countdown clocks in the football locker room until Thursday, okay? So I ordered some clocks, stuck them up in the locker room so they could see the clock connected to the game clock. And we had a GA who I needed her name in my phone because I could tell she was the smartest of the managers. And I knew if I needed to call somebody to do something, I knew she was going to be able to do it. So the equipment person gave me her name out of the phone, and it said KK. I said, well, who is KK? I don't know her name, where she from. I need a real name. Reason I say that is because I'm not going to put KK in my phone. Because for 2 reasons. One, I'm not going to remember who KK is, but you know what? KK is a softball player, number 6 in the class. She probably going to be somebody. And I need to know who KK really is. And Ferg has seen me do this all the time. When people gave me their cards, I logged it. Because I knew at some point I may have to come back to that person. And I tested the iPhone, which is a lie. They say you can put as many numbers in there as possible. That's not true. I still got 3 Blackberries and my 2 iPhones. I still got to go back to them because they won't merge them all in. Do yourself a favor. When you meet people, put everything in there. If I had one of these in college, shit, man. But those people that meet along the way, especially us in our industry, it's a small knit group. You may need to call on them. Mook did me a big solid this summer. I had a GA, she's excellent, she's a senior, and she graduated, and I didn't want to lose her, and she was going to grad school next year, but I wanted her to come back to Delaware State. So she applied for a internship with the Indiana Pacers and the Fever. So I called Mook, I don't know, we were just talking. He said, B, I know Ryan Carr. He the GM. I said, for real? I said, damn, who else we know? Oh, Quinn is there. Quinn doing the radio. So we start going around. So we call Ryan Carr. Hey, Ryan, how you doing? You know, I got this young lady, Dallas Ramirez, who's trying to get the internship, HBCU internship with the Fever. You know, can you direct me who's doing the interviews? Oh, B, man, that's my secretary. What? What you need? I need her there. Done. She back as a GA. She runs our football games and my soccer games, along with another young little brother that I pulled up from Friendship Collegiate. So in your workings in terms of getting to know people, please, that information you get, don't take that for granted, because it's going to come back to help you. Administratively, if coaching is not going to work out, it's a great alternative because it keeps you around the game. It keeps you around the game. It's harder than coaching physically. We had a 3 o'clock football game last night. I had a 7 o'clock soccer match. I got in at 1 last night. Drove back here because I wasn't going to miss this. But in terms of making sure you still making big time impacts on kids, it's grassroots. Last thing I'll leave you with, if you are going to aspire to get into administration, move away from just the game you know. Move away from that. You already know basketball. My big thing now is I want to know equestrian. I want to know soccer. I want to know, we just bought women's wrestling. Yes, the only HBCU in the country with women's wrestling. We hired a 2-time All-American. You know, they gonna come play wrestle for her, not for Dale State. Learn all the other sports. The basketball is gonna be easy, and don't just hang out with the basketball coaches. Get to know everybody in your high school, your college campus, and every person that affects your player. Every person that affects your player, because the thing that's most important is you got to clear the runway so your coaches can coach. Clear the runway so your coaches can coach. I could go on. Any questions, anything you want to ask me out of the blue? I still dabble with basketball a little bit. I have evolved a little bit. And gotten into some other things, but if you need to get a hold of me, I'm accessible. I'm still one of those old guys. You call me, I'm gonna call you back, because I still got that mentality. You could have been a 7-footer that can run, so I pick up the phone. But please, if you got anything you want to run by me, or anything I can help you with, I'm there. And just like all of us are here for the real reason. For the real reason. We know what that is. But I appreciate you doing this. Thank you.
Thank you.